Those words hit me harder than any rejection ever could. Before we begin, if you believe true love deserves a second chance, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. My name is Ethan. I was 38 when life taught me that timing can be crueler than heartbreak. I met Olivia 15 years earlier in college. She wasn't loud or flashy. She laughed with her whole heart, volunteered at animal shelters, and somehow remembered every tiny detail about people. I loved her from the moment we argued over the last blueberry muffin in the campus cafe. But I never told her. Every time I wanted to confess, something got in the way. First it was graduation. Then my father's illness. Then my new job across the country. I kept thinking. There's always next month. There wasn't. When I finally returned home, I learned she'd married Daniel, a successful businessman everyone admired. I congratulated her with a fake smile that hurt more than any wound. Years passed. I buried myself in work while secretly following her life through mutual friends. Then one rainy afternoon, I saw her sitting alone in a hospital cafeteria. She looked exhausted. Our conversation started awkwardly. "Ethan? It's been a long time." She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. Over coffee she admitted the truth. Daniel wasn't the man everyone believed. He controlled every dollar she spent. He mocked her dreams. His mother constantly reminded Olivia that she wasn't good enough for their family. Worst of all, she had suffered 2 miscarriages alone while Daniel blamed her for failing as a wife. I wanted to hug her. Instead I simply listened. Sometimes that's the greatest kindness. Over the next year, we became friends again. Nothing inappropriate. Just conversations. Laughter. Support. Hope. Then one evening she called. "I'm leaving him." Weeks later, the divorce papers were filed. I wanted to ask her the question I'd carried for 15 years. But fear returned. She's healing, I told myself. Don't complicate things. 6 months later, I finally gathered enough courage. I invited her to the park where we'd first met. The sun was setting. Children laughed nearby. I held a small velvet ring box in my pocket. Before I could kneel, she quietly said, "Ethan, someone proposed to me yesterday." The world stopped. I forced a smile. "I'm happy for you." She stared at me for several seconds before tears filled her eyes. Then she whispered, "If you had asked earlier, I would have said yes." My heart shattered. I swallowed hard. Looked directly into her eyes. And asked, "What about now?" Part 2, what about now? Olivia closed her eyes. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally she whispered, "I don't know." That answer hurt. But it was honest. She explained everything. After her painful marriage, she'd promised herself never to chase uncertainty again. The man who proposed, Michael, was kind, dependable, and already close to her family. There wasn't fireworks. There wasn't destiny. There was peace. "You were always the one I wondered about," she admitted. "But wondering isn't the same as living." I nodded. For the first time in my life, I chose honesty over fear. "I've loved you since college." She gasped. "All these years?" "Every single one." Tears rolled down her face. "You idiot." "I know. You let 15 years disappear because you were afraid?" "Yes." She laughed through tears. "You're still the same Ethan." The next morning she asked to meet one last time. She had spent the entire night thinking. She'd also spoken to Michael. Instead of becoming angry, he simply asked one question. "Do you love him?" She couldn't answer. Because the answer was already written in her heart. She returned the engagement ring. Not because Michael was a bad man. But because marrying someone while loving another would have been unfair to both of them. 3 days later she stood outside my house. No makeup. No dramatic speech. Just honesty. You asked what about now? I nodded. She stepped closer. I'm tired of living according to perfect timing. She reached into her purse. Instead of handing me a ring, she handed me the old photograph from college, the one of us laughing over that famous blueberry muffin. I kept this for 15 years. I smiled. So did I. I pulled out the exact same photo from my wallet. She burst into tears. So we've both been carrying each other all this time? Looks like it. This time I didn't wait. I took her hand. Olivia, will you marry me? She laughed louder than I'd heard in years. Yes. No more waiting. No more fear. 1 year later, our wedding wasn't extravagant. No luxury ballroom. No celebrity guests. Just family, close friends, rescued dogs from the shelter where she'd volunteered, and 2 people who had finally learned that love doesn't fail because feelings disappear, it fails when silence lasts too long. During the reception, Olivia leaned against my shoulder and smiled. You know, she whispered, if you'd asked earlier, I would have said yes. I kissed her forehead. I know. She smiled even wider. But asking now was exactly when we were finally brave enough to deserve the answer. And for the first time in 15 years, timing wasn't our enemy anymore. It was finally our greatest blessing.